Hi guys, welcome to the Dad Bub Show. I'm one of your hosts, Ken Blowfield, and Brendo and I, we interview dads all over the world to find out their secrets on balancing how to be a high-performing dad and a high performer in life too. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Boom, and we are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is Ken and Brendo from the Dad Bub Show. I'm one of your hosts, obviously Ken Blowfield, and today Brendo and I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing someone incredibly special. He's an international best-selling author, a decorated performance coach, speaker of the speakers, and coach to entrepreneurs, Olympians, politicians, and obviously the elite-level military forces in the US and some of the largest and bustling businesses and organizations around the world. Now, this isn't just your typical run-of-the-mill performance coach, no sirree. Today, on the show, we have Jairek Robbins, a man dedicated to helping professionals achieve success by living with their purpose in their lives, businesses, and in anything they do. A little backstory into who we have on the show today. Well, if you're wondering, Jairek Robbins, does that name ring a bell? Yes, the man is Anthony Robbins' son, but Jairek has carved his own way in this world at only age 23. Jairek was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal Award from the United States Congress. He has conducted trainings for a variety of companies and organizations, including Harvard University, the United States Marines, the Air Force, Special Forces, UBS, BMW, EXP, MLB teams, the US Olympic teams, and many, many more. So he's a trusted advisor to companies around the world and is currently the president of Success Enterprises, which is just a feat in itself. That is amazing. And today, Jairek, at age 38 years old, with almost 2 decades of performance coaching experience, continues to unlock secrets for maximizing performance and organizational success. And he tells us he's just getting started. He's an innovator. Jairek he's applying his own philosophy and living a life of adventure, philanthropy, and entrepreneurship. Whether it's cage diving with great white sharks, I hear he does that quite regularly. I hear he cuddles koalas over here in Australia. He's been here once. He was over in the Gold Coast doing that. Otherwise, whether he could be hanging with silverbacks in Rwanda, whitewater rafting down the Nile, or, spending time with the family. He is obviously definitely living a full, amazing life, full of deep love and striving to do something that matters. So without further ado, Jairek, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So you get a picture of your family. I was like, well, shit, I'm going to put mine up there. So I was figuring out how to properly place them right here. Bingo.
I love it.
There's my little guy, my wife, and a waterfall. Always helpful for the conversation.
That's so fantastic. I love it. Number one, Ken, there must be new photos behind, but your photos, they do look fantastic. And for anyone who isn't actually watching the video part of this podcast, just the audio, so Jairek, there through the intro, is moving this photo, trying to get this perfect spot the whole time. And I'm just mesmerized looking at it going, number one, how did you get a photo on there? And how do I do that? And number two, it lays us up for a good intro. So Jairek, give us a bit of a story about your family, just for context for people who haven't stumbled on you yet.
Totally. So here, I'll make it a little bigger. There goes me. I'll put my eyes over it. There. You can see me like Mr. Rogers looking over the fence here. This is my son, Koa, my wife, Amanda, and this is a waterfall that's about maybe 15, 20 minutes from our house. And I think this one's important. This one's really important. And the reason is that waterfall has always been there. As a family, we've been there a few times, but this photo actually happened about maybe 8 months. I was just working, and still making time. Like, I set up our lifestyle, and I heard the term comes from where you all live, which is live to work versus working to live. And so I always set it up with I'll work to live, meaning I set my business up and then optimize the tar out of it. And it took me, I've been doing this for 20 years. I was with that dad's company for 6. So almost 14 years of practice, to the point that I got it to three days a week, 4 hours a day, making millions and millions of dollars, but dialed in where I could spend the majority of my time focused on being a husband and a dad.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I worked hard to get there. And the number one rule my mentor taught me was don't let anything distract you. Only do the things that are most important. Say no to everything else. And so I whittled it down to 3 days a week, 4 hours a day. And I could keep this thing moving in a really good place. But it took 14 years to build. It didn't get built overnight. And I've been working with my business mentor for 8 years on it, just optimizing it.
Can I ask a question on that? Something which you said, which is something in my life, I guess I've been contemplating at the moment. So when you say the things that aren't important, you just say no to, do you have a specific example of something that will come across your table where you just go, no, that's not part of my vision, and that's going to affect me having this business dialed in and affect time with my family?
Sure. So for the business specifically, the things I looked at is, does this move the revenue? And more importantly, does it move the profit? And by how much? If I go, so someone wants to hire me to go do a speech, and they're like, it's only an hour speech. I was like, no, it's not. I mean, you're taking my time right now away from my family. I'm going to have to pack up, prepare, get on a plane, fly somewhere. I'm going to have to spend time prepping there. I'm going to have to deliver it and then get on, take some pictures, do some fun stuff, get on a plane, fly home, recalibrate myself. And so that is a lot of time specifically away from my family. And I always do the calculation. I say, okay, if I were to die on this trip and never get to see my family again, then the question I have is, how much would I have paid to be with my family instead of being somewhere else on the last day I could have seen them? It's like I would pay everything. And I was like, so what is it worth to be with my family? It's worth everything. Well, when someone says, well, we'll pay you this, it's only an hour. I'm like, no, it's not. You're taking me away from my family. And so I look at it differently. That's not how I looked at it before. When I looked at it before, I was like, in the beginning, it was like, holy crap, I get paid to go do this? That's amazing. After a while, it was like, yeah, I want to go to Dubai. That sounds like a great idea. We'll go for a week. I'll speak for an hour, get to hang out for a week. That's a great trip.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Amazing. And then after so long, I'm like, well, wait a second. Shit, what's the real ROI on that? ROI for our business. And then eventually it turned, these are stages. Like stage 1, holy crap, I can get paid to do this. Stage 2, that's a great trade for a trip somewhere fun. Stage 3, the concept of like, wow, what's the ROI? Meaning, what is the ROI for my business? And is that the best investment of that time, thought, effort, hour, and resource? Is that the best investment I can make with that? If I have 20 hours that goes into this, if I put those 20 hours anywhere else, is that the best investment? Is it the best ROI I can get for the 20 hours? If there's nothing else I can do that can get that ROI, it's the best investment I can make right now. If there's something else I can do to get a better ROI, I'm taking a less useful, a less effective investment vehicle. And this is the same when we invest in properties. Every year we pull out all the properties and go, okay, have we invested in the best place to get the strongest and most consistent and safest ROI possible? Is there a better place we could allocate and deploy those funds to get a better ROI? Same thing with our time. Have we invested our time into the best place possible? Or is there a better place we could put our time that would get a better ROI for our relationship, a better ROI for our family, a better ROI? Where we're living, have we put ourselves in the place to get the best ROI for the life and love and relationship we want to have? That was a big moment for us. When my wife was pregnant with our son, we looked at that and said, we're living in Miami Beach on the 30th floor of a skyrise. I called it the Puff Daddy apartment. Wasn't quite as big as Puffy's, but it was all white. We had turquoise ocean in every window all the way around the building. We had a wraparound balcony. Like, it was as Puff Daddy as my life was going to get. So I was like, this is great. And we looked at that and I'm like, but this isn't where you have a baby. Like that. This is a fun city. There's chaos everywhere. It's New York City on a beach. Like, this is just chaos.
Where do you live now?
Puerto Rico. So we live on an old farm. You'll probably hear a rooster crow at some point. There's goats and chickens and cows around here. Every now and then there's a horse that randomly shows up at our front gate. Like we'll walk outside and be like, whose horse is that? I don't know. And we'll just feed it an apple or a mango. Like there's just random animals everywhere here. And so the reason we moved here, though, is we looked in Miami Beach and we're like, this is a fast pace of life, not where you bring a child into the world. And most importantly, think of all the stress that's already coming onto my wife's body. She's about to 3D print a human for 9 months. Like,
I've never heard that, and that is the best way of anyone's explained going through pregnancy, printing a 3D human.
Yeah, you're 3D printing a human for 9 months. Like, if you turned on a printer for 9 months straight and left it going like, like, think of all the resources that's going to use. How much electricity, how much ink, how much materials, how many times you're going to have to replace random parts on it. But a woman's able to do this, or, oh my God, a birthing person, depending on where you want to go. A woman's able to do this. And without breaking parts, without replacing the ink, my God, her body 3D prints a human, the whole process without having to replace anything or unplug it and plug it back in. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And so my thought is, what is the environment I could put us in that would give us the best opportunity to offset the chaos and stress that's happening in her nervous system? And so we lived in Costa Rica before, in a little tiny beach town right outside of Tamarindo called Langosta. Slow pace of life, super mellow, surfers, dirt roads, acai bowls, like relaxing place. And I said, what if we move back there while you're pregnant just to offset the natural stress on your body? And we were like, that's a great idea. And then we heard about Puerto Rico. We went to the other side and we're like, no, this is like a suburb of Miami, but on an island. Like, why would we move all the way there just to have the same stuff we have? That didn't make any sense. And then I was speaking at an event in New Jersey. Our flight got jacked up because of random rainstorm. There were 2 flights still taking off. We kind of played airport roulette, which we like to play, which is like, let's just get on one and go. Doesn't matter. Like, just pick one. We'll hop on and find out where we're going. So we played airport roulette. One was going to Naples, Italy. One was going to Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. We hopped on Puerto Rico, landed here at 2 a.m, didn't know where the hell we were, found an Airbnb on the beach, loved it, and then a day later bought someone's house from them.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah. And you know what? If you ended up in Italy, it would be equally as amazing. But Puerto Rico just happened to be the place to be.
Totally. We would be in an Italian villa. But this one worked out, and there's actually a pretty big tax advantage. Oh, well,
that's always a plus.
U.S. citizens down here. Yeah, it helps.
So I've got to ask, right? When you're looking at, because obviously you've now engineered your life to raise your family in the best possible way that you can imagine, right? That you can envision. So how important do you think that is? Like, obviously, most people will just start and finish in the same place they grew up, right? Most people don't move, and it's very, very common. And sometimes I think it's a little bit sad that they don't get the opportunity to be able to go out and travel and explore the world with their family and their spouse and live in these amazing places. But when you're looking at engineering your life, how important is it to consider different places that, in your opinion or belief, gives the best ability for your children, your family to thrive?
So my wife and I like to travel. We both love to travel. And when we met each other, we actually met each other on a rooftop party in a place I was living in San Diego. And when they introduced us, she had just shown up. And my friend whose house we were at grabbed her. And I didn't learn this till after, but she grabbed her and said, "Girl, put a smile on your face. I'm about to change your life." And she dragged her across the party and she pushed her into me. And she goes, "This is Amanda. She loves to volunteer. She loves to travel. She used to live in Asia somewhere. And then she goes, "This is Jairek. He loves to volunteer. He loves to travel. He used to live in Africa somewhere. Okay, you two have fun. See you later." And walked away. And I looked at her and I was like, okay. In Southern California, when people say they like to travel, that means they've gone to Las Vegas, Tijuana, maybe Hawaii, and most likely San Francisco. Like, they don't go far. There's a little circle that they kind of go in, and they call it traveling. It's the same shit they just do over and over again and get really excited.
Keeping it on the West Coast. It's like Western Australians here going to Bali. We get you. There
you go. It's the same shit. Like, I love to travel. And you're like, no, you all go to the same place. It's the same shit. There's no different. And, they go to Tulum now. Now they go to Tulum. That's the big Instagram place. You got to go and get your photos on to show everyone you're world traveler. So this thought of, that's my perception of most people who are like this. So she walks up, I'm like, you like to travel? Where have you been? And she's like, well, I used to live in Bali. I did some graduate school when I was living in China. I lived in Thailand and went to Chulalongkorn, which is like the Harvard of China or Thailand. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. Like, you've really traveled. And I'm like, where's your next place you're going? And she's like, I was thinking Central South America for a few months, just kind of go explore. I was like, now we're talking. She's like, what about you? I was like, I took a cruise ship around the world. We did 10 countries in 100 days and completely circumnavigated the globe.
Wow.
She's like, well done. Like, what else have you done? And I was like, well, when I came back, I just saw what was going on in East Africa, and it kind of felt like home to me. So I packed up all my shit, took a year off of school, moved to East Africa, lived in a village teaching organic farming. She's like, who are you? And I was like, who are you? Like, this is weird. We've never met. You volunteer? She's like, yeah, I was Make-A-Wish Granter of the Year in San Diego. I was like, that's cool. She's like, you volunteer. I'm like, I grew up volunteering. I've been, feeding homeless people and doing stuff all over the world since I was a kid. She's like, no shit. And so 4 hours later, we were just enamored with each other in a conversation. And I felt like I was hungry. So I was like, okay, if I'm hungry, she's probably hungry. A friend told me something important, though. They said, never go on your first date by yourself, because you won't act like yourself. You'll act like the person you think you need to be. And I went, I'll say it again. Don't go on a first date by yourself, because you won't be yourself. You'll try to be the person you think you need to be to impress the person who's in front of you. And I went, okay. I remember hearing that. So my friend Alex was there, and I hit Alex, and I was like, Alex, are you hungry? And he was like, yeah, I'm hungry. I'm always hungry. He's just big guy, wrestles all the time, like athletic, does every martial arts you imagine. Like he's a nonstop, always hungry human. So I brought Alex, and we went and we grabbed tacos. And Alex did something funny. I'm trying to see if I can get this picture over onto my computer real quick. And Alex did something funny. He said, here, he had this app that puts a mustache on people's faces. And so he was like, watch this. He's like, here, let me do this. So he's like, here, let me take a picture of you. So he took a picture of her, and she just smiled. And he said, here, let me do this. He goes, if you still think she's cute like this, you've probably got a good one. And so this was the very first day we met. Alex put a mustache on her. I don't know if you could see it.
We could see it. It's a little bit to the side. We could definitely clip it to show it.
Yeah. I looked at her, and I was like, she is kind of cute with a mustache even. Like, okay, I think this is going to work. And so I knew if I still think she's cute with a mustache, which she is, I'm like, yeah, she's still cute. Then we had something to go on. But the most important part was kind of the three most important values of our life lined up. She actually told me many years later, she called her girlfriend that day, and she goes, he exists. And she goes, excuse me? Like, what are you talking about? And she goes, I need you to know this. That if this turns into anything and we end up getting married or something, like, I need you to know this. I don't know where this will go. It's up to him to find out if how he feels about me. But I know the man of my dreams exists. And I was like, damn, cool. That's a bold statement. Like, I hope I lived up to the statement over all these years.
I was just about to say no pressure there lined up on the first day, but hey, look, it's obviously panned out. Now, straight into it from the dad side. So obviously you grew up in a very unique environment. I mean, anyone who listens to this has definitely listened to your dad's work at some stage. I know when I was 18, it was one of the first things that my mentor back then put on, the little CDs that were in the van that he used to put on and, would have Awaken the Giant every sort of morning. And that was my exposure into personal development.
I have so many questions. You said your mentor used to take you into a van to listen to Personal Power?
Sorry, I should explain. I worked in a supplement store, so bodybuilding supplements,
it's making more
protein.
Sense now.
This is
my brain just exploded with like mentor van. I was like,
that's how we do it in Australia.
Okay,
that's how we do it in Australia.
We go out in the outback in a white van.
It's how it works. I mean, if you want to learn how to upgrade your life, you will meet me at dawn in the van, and we're going to drive you to the outback, and I'm going to show you how to do this. And we start with Tony in the audio program.
I love it. I'm really glad that you picked up on that because I've never thought of that story in that way. So I worked at a supplement store. It was the first thing. I just wanted to sell protein as a kid. And I just wanted to be that dude who went to the gym and sold protein. So I had very low standards and I reached my life goal when I was 18 at the time and then started to get exposed into personal development. So one thing that you touched on with meeting your wife and getting prepped up for pregnancy is... you were very equipped to be a dad. Did you feel like you were ready to be a dad? And how much of your upbringing really built you in to be that person who was ready? Because I know a lot of dads don't feel like they're ready at that point in time.
Sure. So a friend of mine studies men. That's her profession. She studies men, studies relationships, and she makes books and programs on it. She has a program called The Amazing Development of Men. It's 1,000% worth listening to 12 times. And it talks about the general stages men go through in the development of themselves and what they're able to take responsibility for at each stage. And so if I were to give you a very fast forward version of the stages and then tell you where I was when becoming a dad came around for me, she said 0 to 13 years old. She uses like medieval times labels for each stage. So she goes 0 to 13, they're a note. If you're in like medieval times, they wear all white, they have a wooden sword, they're like, they think they're ready for battle, but the truth is if you let them out of the castle wall, they will get slaughtered. Like they do not have anywhere near what it takes to take on the real world, but in their mind they do. They jump off tables, they ride the wooden horse, they wave their wooden sword, and then when the real knights come home from battle, 13 to 30, the ones who are outraging in the world and climbing mountains and doing crazy shit, like these 0 to 13s are just in awe of like, wow, can I hold your sword? Can I walk next to your horse? Like, can I just stand next to you? This is so cool. Like they're just drooling over how cool it is. It's like if you take a 5-year-old kid to a firehouse or a police station or an army base. Like, they're like, oh, wow, like, look at all this stuff. They're in awe. It blows their mind. It's so cool. And so 0 to 13, they're a note. They're dreaming of possibilities. They think they have it, but they're not there. 13 to 30, they're a knight. A knight is all about conquering mountains. And mountains, it's always the next mountain. It doesn't matter which mountain you've climbed. It doesn't matter where it's at. It's always the next mountain. So like you climb, and you get to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and you look out in the distance and go, ooh, what's that? And then you climb, and now you're going after Mount Fuji. And then you get to the top of Mount Fuji, and you're like, oh shit, look at that one. And then you go after Mount Shasta. And like you're going from mountain to mountain to mountain to mountain. There's always Everest, though. Everest is like, oh shit, like I don't know if I can do that, but fuck, I want to. Like Everest is the thing and Everest might be the job, it might be the business, it might be the relationship, it might be the health goal, but Everest is some mountain in a young man's life that he's like, oh, I really want to, but I'm scared shitless if I'm honest. I'll never say that, but my God, it scares the shit out of me because that's the one that really threatens the core of who I think I am, and if I fuck it up, my God, I'm nobody. So that's that one in their life. If you keep going forward, 13 to 30, it's all about the next mountain. It's conquering. It's really defining the boundaries. finding out what you're actually capable of. Does reality match the dream in your mind? Can you actually become the person you think you are? That's what 13 to 30 is all about. Somewhere around 30, we enter a different stage, and there's 3 parts to this next stage. Part 1 is where we decide what is worth investing our life into. That's a big statement. Worth investing our life into. This is where we look for something worth doing, something worth investing our life into. And then what happens is the first stage of this stage, somewhere around 30, 28 to 30, we're locking it in. Between 30 and like 35, 38, it's just work, breathe. Work, breathe. Work, breathe. That's what life is. Somewhere towards the later stages of this, let's think 40, 45, 50, 55, like going in those stages, we start to feel like we've done it. We conquered whatever we thought was worth investing our life into. Our chest's a little bigger, our ego's a little stronger, and not in an egotistical way, but just in a like, I know who the hell I am, and I know what I've done, and I've fucking done it. Or I missed, and I don't know what I need to do with my life, but it didn't turn out what I thought. I totally whiffed. Either way, different parts of the world call this next stage different things. I've heard it called the tunnel. I've heard it called a midlife crisis. I've heard it called a deep questioning, a deep awakening. It's the time in life that we look back on everything we've accomplished and we ask a question that throws us into a tunnel, which is, was it worth it? Did it even matter? What was the point of all of that? Who cares? Why do I even care about that shit? Like, what was I doing? And that's what stirs up this tunnel. And the tunnel is all about values realignment. It's about asking the question, what's actually most important to me in life? And am I investing my thought, my time, my resources, and my energy into the things that are actually most important? Or am I allowing my time, my thought, my effort, my energy to be invested in the things that honestly don't matter to me? And at that stage, it's a deep realignment into what is most important to you as a human. Once you're in values alignment, this next stage, 45 to 55, let's say 55 to 60, in the 50, 60, 70, these stages, it's really about collaboration. Can I align myself with other humans who share similar vision and values, because we can do more together than we ever could on our own? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. At this stage of life, it's about building the community that will go far together. Later stages, like the late elders, 80s, 90s, these ones get into, I'm going to plant trees that I'll never see and never get to sit under the shade of. But I know I'm planting trees for the future, and I know someone in the future will get to bask in the shade of this tree. I'll never be around to see it, and I'm okay with that.
So is the goal, like thinking about all those that you've talked about, all those stages of life, is understanding those concepts a means to do it earlier? Is it to plant the seeds for future generations now in our 20s and 30s? Or is it, to start going, I'm not here to just go fast. I'm in my 13 to 30 year age, year state center at the moment. Am I supposed to be going fast, or am I like, should I be collaborating so I can go further together? Like, what are the things that we as young dads need to be thinking about right now?
So, great question, and it's a common question. Achievement-focused people are like, well, fuck, how do I get to the end result? I want to get to the end, because that's clearly... and I always ask people, I'm like, I don't know, how quickly do you want to die?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the end result. Is that where you're trying to speed up? Is you're like, fuck it, I need to jam on the gas and get to death quicker. Like, no, that's stupid. You're supposed to enjoy the dash in between when you were born and when you die. Like, the dash is the magic. And so when you look at that, I have a different take on it. Mine is, can you create a bucket list for each stage of your life? All the things you'd like to experience, create, develop, design, give, share, teach, learn, all the things you want to really, really bask in this stage of life, and check every single thing off that list before you decide to move to the next stage. That way, when you look back at a stage, you think there's not a single additional thing that I would have any urge to do for this stage of life. Like, this stage of life is complete. I'm ready to move on to the next. I think of that in stages of relationships. So many people, my father included, went so quickly through the initial stages of relationship that they didn't get to experience all the magic of the stage they were in. And so not everyone has this choice. Sometimes you have a fun night out and it turns out that all of a sudden it's like you went from meeting to parents. And it's like, oh shit, that wasn't, wow, that was quick. That it doesn't mean you screwed up. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means at some point you have to go back, maybe when the kids are a little older, and say, hey, we never have had a dating each other bucket list. Can we create one? And can we go back to the moment where we were dating with each other and pretend like we're dating and do everything on our bucket list together as a dating couple? Can we then do an engagement bucket list and everything we do together as an engaged couple? Can we then do a married couple without kids? I know we have kids, but let's pretend like they don't exist a month out of the year and do everything on the married but no kids list. Can we then do a married with one kid list and do everything we dream of? Someone told me something, because people oftentimes say, it was like, when I grew up, my parents screwed me up, and because they didn't give me this or tell me this or do this, that's why my life the way it is. One of my friends looked me straight in the face one time. He said, it's never too late to have a beautiful childhood. You just have to take time, write out the bucket list, and go back and do the things you think you were missing.
That's amazing.
It's really profound. So you mentioned when you took us on this journey, which, by the way, this has like been super powerful. Yeah, amazing so far. You mentioned that you'd say where you were at your point in the journey with becoming a dad. So personally, where were you?
So she says, Allison says, the biggest commitment a man will ever make in his life is having a baby. It's a bigger commitment than marriage, because a marriage can end. Being a father can never end. Once you start, it's there for life, period, regardless of what happens. And I went, ooh, that's a big one. And she said, most men, there's a feeling of being ready. And ready for most men equates to either, if they had a good childhood, they're able to replicate or better what was provided or given to them as a kid. If they have a bad childhood, it's based on they can provide the childhood they wish they would have had growing up. But either way, that's when a man qualifies, the box checks and goes, I'm ready to be a father. I can provide the same or better, or I can provide the thing I wish I had that I didn't. And so when I looked at that, I got to a place where I was ready. I was still nervous, but I was like, I think I'm ready. I can provide. I had a great childhood, and I think I can provide what I was provided with. And I wasn't anywhere close to where my dad was at that stage of his life, but I knew the most important factors, and I could provide that. And I was ready. So looking back, the stage of life I was in, when my wife and I got married, we were both 28. 28 years old when we met each other. We got married, I think, at 29. And I was ending knighthood. I was ending the proving to myself what was possible and conquering all the things around the world. So the first trip her and I went together was, I think, 15-day, 10-country cruise through Central and South America. That was next up on her trip. I was taking, 25-day, 10-country cruise. I was taking a group of like 20 people with me on a trip that I was leading through Central and South America. And then I text my wife and I was like, hey, do you want to be my cabin mate? And she just melted. She was like, oh my God, he invited me to share a cabin. Like, oh, her heart melted. We're going to 25 days, 10 countries in Central and South America. That was next on my trip list anyways. Like, she was so excited. And so that's when we met. We finished doing a lot of night stuff. So a lot of traveling the world together and doing trips everywhere and seeing and conquering the world. We got a private jet membership one year. And we just cleared our schedule and organized it that every jet that was open, we would get on. And so we spent a year, every plane that popped up, we got on it and just went somewhere. Didn't know where we were going, what was there, how it worked. We just got on every plane that took off. And so we had fun. And then there was a transition where we looked at the life we wanted to live and how we wanted to live. And when we said, if we want to do that financially, it's going to require an insane amount of work that we're going to have to really put in. And that's when I started to transition into the Prince stage, that work, breathe. I already knew the work I wanted to do, which was helping people live better lives, helping people have better relationships, better businesses, and better mentally, emotionally, physically as humans. And that was the work I wanted to do. And so we just went to town. We spent 4 years in Tampa just busting our faces and working nonstop every day of the week. We learned 2 things. One, it's hard to work together as a young couple because you're trying to have a relationship and own a business together and be sexy and fun, yet be responsible and accountable for results. Like, that's very challenging. We had a lot of tears at the table where I was wildly direct and it would hurt her feelings and she'd be crying and she'd be mad. And I'd be like, man, I don't know how to say it in a fluffier way. Like, if the target's missed, it's fucking missed. Get it done. Like, and that was not the way to speak to your wife, I learned.
You and me both.
Yeah. So we learned I needed to learn how to communicate, not just drive ideas home, but say it in more effective and loving and caring ways and kind ways. And she's tough as nails. She ran a $4.3 million a month ad budget for McAfee when she was in digital advertisement at a big agency. So she's tough as nails and kicks ass, and she can build businesses left and right. I'm just, in my personal life, super, super friendly. But if you take me in the business, I'm direct and harder. And so I forgot when I switched hats to tell her I switched hats, and she just thought I was like coming after her. And so we figured out how. We used the DISC assessment to learn how to better communicate with each other in business. And once we ironed that out, we started working really well together. And we just got a great rhythm. Our business took off. We had a lot of fun doing that. We also learned we didn't like living in standard places where people work normal jobs. And I was like, that is not our tribe. That's not our group of people that we fit well with. We love them. They're great humans, but that is not our way of life. And so we moved to Costa Rica. We moved back to San Diego. We moved to Miami Beach. We eventually moved to Puerto Rico in this little beach town here. And we're like, yeah, we found out that the types of people we connect with the most are very entrepreneurial, tend to be nomadic, tend to live in very specific type of vacation or beach cities around the world. And we just gel really well with those types of people. And that was a huge shift for us. And so when we were in Miami Beach and we started to purposefully try to have a baby, we did it on purpose. We said, okay, we've done all our fun conquering the world. We've built our business. We've dialed ourselves in. We've done everything we want to do as a young couple without a child. Let's have one. Let's have one. And one of my friends actually said this the other day. He said, a couple that works really well together, just the two of them, is a different couple when you add a child. And he said he has 4 kids now. So he said they become even more of a different couple when you add a second child, even more different as a third, even more different as a fourth. And he said something that was kind of a zap, which is not every couple that works well together as a couple works well together as a couple with kids. Because who they are and how they want their life to be doesn't always line up the same way once you add other humans to the puzzle. And I went, oof, I don't know if I like that. Like, I believe in love too much and making it way or finding a way or figuring it out. But I said, where's the truth in that phrase? And the truth was, unless they're willing to update their blueprint of how they think life should be, he's right. But if they're willing to update the blueprint, and say, if we were to play this board game with 2 people, here's the rules. If we were to play this board game with 3 people, here's the updated rules because there's a third human here. If we were to play the board game with 4 people, here's the updated rules because now there's 4 people here. And so if you don't update the rules to accommodate for how many players are at the table, the game's going to get really funky. It's like if you go play a tennis match, but you play it as if you're playing singles, but there's 4 people on the court. The game doesn't play the same way.
Exactly.
And so you have to update the strategy and update the rules to accommodate how many players are there.
Yeah, I love that. It makes so much sense because we do that in everyday life, right? So why not do that in a relationship setting? It just makes so much sense.
Totally. In America, there's a carpool lane. If you have more than 3 people in the car, 2 people in the car, you can drive in that lane. If you don't, you can't drive in that lane. So there's a rule of how you can accommodate where you drive on the road depending on how many humans you have in the car. Same thing. There should be a different set of rules depending on how many humans you have in the family of how you approach, how you do life. But most people, 1, aren't aware of their own rules. That screws up the game. 2, aren't aware of their partner's rules. That screws up the game and causes all kinds of nonsense and chaos. And then 3, forget to update the rules once there's more additions to the family. And so you have to do it at each stage. Here's what mine are. Here's what yours are. Here's what ours are when we choose to be together. It's a different set of rules. You have yours, I have mine, but when we're together, there's a third set of rules that we both choose to follow when we're together. And as we add family members to the crew, here's a new set of rules that we're adding to the list. New set of roles and responsibilities. New set of who's in charge of what. It adds on each time. Coming back to your question, where I was when we decided to have a child, he's 2. So 38, 37, 36, 35. My wife and I were 34, 35 years old, and it was very much by choice. We said, okay, we're ready. If we're going to do this, it's kind of, life started telling her, like, either you do it now or you're getting too old, which is nonsense. There's people who have babies much older, but the doctors started to chime in, like, you're an elder millennial, you're a geriatric millennial. I was like, my God, you guys are jerks. Like, they started calling you old and all kinds of nonsense. So they kind of spooked us, and we were like, oh shit, maybe we are geriatric millennials and we should probably start kicking this in gear if we're going to do it.
Didn't your dad just have a new kid, and didn't you just have a new sibling join the family?
Yeah. I have a baby sister, and he's 62, so doctors can shove it.
Yeah, exactly. Jairek,
I love doctors. I'm just saying I don't agree with them all the time.
Of course.
Yeah.
And we don't agree with everything all the time, right? Otherwise, this world would be a pretty boring place. So I have to ask Jairek, because obviously, you know, what we want to do is we want to try to be the best parents we can possibly be, but also be the best, husbands and spouses we can possibly be to our family. So, you know, just touching on the first point there, because, you know, the blueprint has to change when you're going from a couple when it's just you two, and now it's a couple when there might be the first one, the second one, the third one comes along. So how do you have that conversation first up, and how do you design your life as a couple to be really strong in a relationship together, but then also show up and be incredibly, close with your son or daughter, the new bub, the new entity that's brought into this life?
So my dad teaches this as a Date with Destiny event. It's one of the best places in the world to do this work, where you get very clear on your values and you get really clear on your rules. Your values are the things that are most important to you. Many of us, our values are not something we're consciously have chosen in our life. Our values are things that are a reflection of what we've been taught over the years of what's most important to us. Where values come from, if I were to give you a brief synopsis of this, when you're 0 to 13, again, we'll go back to those stages. 0 to 13 years old, many of us come up with stories, beliefs, and habits. Stories, beliefs, and habits. Stories is the narrative we tell ourselves, what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong, what life is. That's the story, the narrative we have constantly flowing in our head. We have stories about who we think we are. We have stories about who we tell people we are, and we have stories about, what people actually see us to be. If you want to do something fun, go talk to someone who knew you when you were 15 and ask them to tell you the story of who you were in their eyes. And then ask yourself to write down, what was the story I would tell people of who I was at 15? And then what's the story I thought of who I really was when I was 15? And what's fascinating is watching how many humans the stories don't fucking match. Who you thought you were, who you said you were, and who people knew you to be rarely does it match at 15.
Yeah.
Because you think you're a superhero, you tell people you're okay, and people see you as a goofy son of a bitch that tells weird jokes. And you're like, well, shit, that doesn't match. I thought I was great. Or I thought I was weird, and everyone else thought I was so cool. It's such a weird dynamic when you actually unpack it and look at it. But 0 to 13 for all humans, the concept is we're building the foundation, safety, consistency. Can I build the life I want to live? Can I, eventually get a job? Can I eventually get an apartment? Can I be safe and happy and healthy? Can I have autonomy? Can I be myself in the world? That's kind of that, and it's probably 0 to 19 to be honest for most of us. Let's say 20 to 35, this next stage, it's all about, can I create social bonds? Can I create friendships? Can I create community? Can I create a tribe? Can I create people I can count on and they can count on me? And so in that stage of life, when you're trying to create community and a tribe and relationships, you create new stories, beliefs, and habits. Some of the habits you started at 15 no longer serve you, but you keep doing this habit and the habit keeps fucking up all your relationships. And if you let go of the habit that you learned at 15 because some girl broke your heart and you realized that habit was a defense mechanism to save your ass back then and no longer is useful now, you go, oh shit, I didn't realize I've been doing that all these years and I should probably let that one go. And it's a habit. It's an actual habit, a routine you do. Yale research found out that 40% of what we do every day is nothing more than an unconscious habit. Meaning, if you watch the first time in brain waves, someone does something, there's a huge spike and then lots of big spikes the whole time they're doing the activity. By the 5th to 10th time they do it, there's a huge spike, the brain waves fall, and then there's a gentle hum of mental activity, meaning you're literally in autopilot. 40% of your entire day-to-day life is autopilot. The question is, what did you program into your autopilot?
Fuck.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's profound.
Oops. Most of us fucked that up. And so we go back and I look at the habits and say, okay, what habits did we program into autopilot at 15 around the topic of relationships? Shit. Oops. I need to update the habits, man. Because whatever hopefully they're good habits. If they're not, I've been running 15 years on autopilot of shitty relationship habits. My bad. And 40% of it's unconscious all day. Whoops. We got to reprogram the habits from 15, 18, 19 years old. I had some pretty shitty relationship habits at 19. I can be honest.
Didn't we all?
Those weren't good ones. Yeah. Defense mechanisms, being mean, all kinds of stuff. Ghosting people. These are just shitty habits. You do that to your wife, you won't have a wife.
Right, there's that mentality when we're children. It's treat them mean, keep them keen is a saying in Australia, right? But that doesn't serve me today. Believe me, I try it with my wife and I get belted, no dinner, the bed sheets, and I cook, but I'd
say you land up sleeping on the couch, but for most guys, it's actually like a camping adventure. That's not a punishment. But the truth is, though, it causes pain in someone you love. A friend told me the boy must die for the man to live. The boy picks on a woman, teases her, pulls her ponytail, pushes her in the sand. I don't know a grown man who'd ever do something like that to his daughter. He would protect her. He would lay his life down for her. He would do anything it takes to make sure that she's taken care of. He might tease her and be a little fun, but in the reality of the day-to-day life, he would die for her. And the boy inside of us must die for the man to live. We got to let go of the side of ourselves that picks on and teases and has habits that that does boyish things, and allow the man to come to life that goes, no, I'm here to provide and love and care for, and provide isn't money. Provide space to listen, provide the opportunity for her to shine her brightest, provide a safe space for her to unleash everything she is, and you to stand there and love every part of it. Provide the part to love parts of her that she doesn't even like about herself. My wife has a toe that she doesn't like because she ripped one of her toenails off and it grew in a little funky. I call that toe my favorite toe. It's a part of herself that she doesn't even like about herself, and I chose to love the hell out of it. But you need to do that physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. What are the parts that she doesn't even want to look at in her own self? And you stare those straight down and say, I love the hell out of that part of you. By choice. And so the boy must die for the man to live. And boys don't do stuff like that. Boys are like, oh, she talks too much. Fuck this. Like, a man is like, no. She's if she's talking, she's trusting me. A woman won't share details with you if she doesn't trust you. Women know this, men don't. And so if she's sharing details with you, it means she trusts you. If she trusts you, you have to be there to catch the details and help sort through them with her. And so the boy must die for the man to live. And you got to allow that habit you picked up at 15 or 12 or 20 or whatever it was. Some picked up at 32, 40, or 50. Whatever time period of life you picked it up, usually in creating social bonds, that stage of life, habits, beliefs, and stories. What's the narrative you used to tell yourself? What's the habits you had? And what's the beliefs you picked up? All men are, all women are. Those are beliefs, however you answer that. And then you got to upgrade them. You got to choose to consciously do the work to rewrite the beliefs, rewrite the values, rewrite the habits, and then practice them. When you learn something new, you suck at it. Then you become okay if you practice long enough. Then you become really good, and then you fucking master it. But you got to be willing to suck at it and be okay at it, and then really good at it before you can master it. And so knowing I'm going to upgrade some habits that I picked up 20 or 30 years ago, you're going to suck. You're going to be horrible at these things. One of the requests I made to my wife was I identified some things I needed to do better in our relationship, and I asked her, I said, are you okay with me just being really shitty at this long enough that I can get good and then someday be great for you? And she laughed and she said, that's so sweet, of course. And I said, I'm going to be really bad in the beginning. I just warning you, I'm going to suck. I'm just going to be horrible. Like, I'll forget to do it. I'll do it in the wrong way. I'll do it in a way that'll hurt your feelings. And I don't intentionally mean any of that. I just know the reality is I'm new at this. But I promise I'm going to stick with it long enough that someday I'll be great for you.
Man, that's so amazing. If you don't mind, I'm going to steal that and use that in my relationship.
We all should. It's super. It's all of this has been like so super profound. We can bring it to an end now. There's one question that we do finish on. Like, there's so much that. There's so much that I've taken away.
I'm just tired of listening to you, Gab. We're going to have to wrap this shit up.
No, this has been so profound. Now, we usually ask two questions at the end. I'm going to skip my question so we can go straight to Ken. Just one thing I want to clarify before we move on.
I want to know what your question is.
Oh, boom. You have to ask
okay, well, then I won't skip it. So, yeah, I will. Okay, I will. I'll come back to it. But one thing I want to clarify. So, The Amazing Development of Men.
Yes.
This is the book. And your friend?
Allison Armstrong.
Okay, cool. I got the right book. I wanted to make sure because I want to include that in the show notes as well because you telling that story. I'm same age as you, or I'm 1985, so very similar age as you, and I can relate to those stories. So we got about a decade on Ken, and almost to the exact years of what you said. I went through that. So yeah, amazing, and I suggest that people read that. Now, my question, which is a lot easier to ask. So I grew up in the health and fitness industry, and so fitness is massively important to me. Dads that we have on the podcast are all at different stages. But obviously, we have the dad bod that everyone hears about, coming a new dad. And so my question is, how do you take care of your health and fitness?
Oh, I'm a nerd in this area. I measure
fantastic.
everything. You can't improve what you don't measure. I have a new wrong arm. I have a new blood sugar monitor that's constantly pulling my blood sugar. I'm dialing in how to keep my blood sugar levels consistent and steady. I track everything.
Whoop brothers. Whoop
Yeah,
brothers.
probably way too many
Got a
things,
Whoop
to
and
be
Aura.
honest. I tease my friend, Sean Stevenson, who has the Model Health podcast. He was teasing me. He's like, none of those are accurate, right? And I was like, I don't give a shit if they're accurate. I know my range of what I'm in between every day. And I teased him. I'm like, I'm probably going to die of green light poisoning from all the little fucking green lights in these things. He's like, yeah, he's teasing me. But the reality is, I was taught, and I learned it in business, which you can only improve that which you're willing to measure. And so I looked at that and I said, okay, how am I going to measure all of my health metrics? And then if I'm going to push my body like an F1 race car, I better have pit stops that refuel me just as intensely. Because it would be absolutely asinine to say, okay, the way I'm going to win an F1 race is I'm just not going to pit stop. I'm not going to refuel. I'm not going to change out my tires. I'm not going to put any more oil in the car. I'm just going to drive like a maniac at 200 plus miles an hour and not stop. And any race professional in the world would be like, you're an idiot, that won't work. After two laps past when you were supposed to pit, your engine will blow up, your tires will melt off, you'll be on the side of the road with the car on fire, and everyone else will be zipping by you. And so I look at my body like a high-performance machine, and I go, okay, how fast and how far can I go before I need a pit stop, and what does a pit stop need to look like to get my body all the way back up to full so I can then go at 200 miles an hour? And most people don't do that. They burn out. They roast their tires, they roast their engine, and they're fucked. And so instead, I apologize. I forgot to ask if I could cuss.
You can curse as much, yeah.
Because we're Aussies.
If I went way off course, I apologize. Bleep me.
No,
but
it's all good.
So I look at like a F1 race car, and so I nerd out on this stuff. My friend just bought a cold plunge. I'm going to go test his. If I like it, I'm going to get one here at the house. We have kind of the cheap version of it. Like we have a plastic tub and ice in a freezer that we pour into the tub and repeat every week. But if we like his, we'll order one. We just ordered the barrel sauna for our backyard. It should be here. We have all the biohacking red light stuff, the glasses, we have everything. So we buy all this stuff, completely nerd out and use it, and love it. And it's phenomenal, the results we see mentally, emotionally, and physically. And most importantly, it gives us the more energy that we can invest into each other.
That's so good.
I love that. Fitness wise, and I say this going through one of your photos, one of your recent photos, sport wise, do you do jiu-jitsu or do you just have a Gracie shirt on?
Oh, yeah, totally. My uncle teaches with Henner Gracie in Los Angeles. So when I'm there, they always invite me to come roll with them. I'm not good. I just roll with them. I'm effective. I know enough to protect my family. But when I'm there, I'll go say hi and we'll roll together and they'll teach me new stuff and we'll just kind of wrestle and spar on the mat. But I'm hooked on Peloton right now. So I have a Peloton bike and the treadmill, and I've seen how much it changed the dynamic for me in consistency of like, it's an everyday no matter what. And then what I love is when we travel, the app goes with me and I have every fitness class you could imagine at my fingertips. So I walk into the gym of the hotel, kind of see what they've got and go, okay, we're doing a hill climb, or we're doing a cycling class, or we're going to lift weights, or we're going to do some yoga, or we're going to do some stretching, or we're going to meditate. Like, it's all right there.
I love it.
And I think that is an insane thing to have with you at this point in history, and it's super cool to be able to
I wholeheartedly agree.
And then even if there isn't a gym, I'm like, fuck it, I'll just do body weights in the room. Like, I'm
Peloton is changing the game for the fitness industry, and we're absolutely loving it. Absolutely, it's a bougie piece of equipment, but it's absolutely unreal. Absolutely unreal.
So I learned you can buy a $200 spin bike and just use the app for $34 a month and save the $5,000 to order the damn bike.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know that.
Man,
Well, I thought you had
go.
to get the bike, and that's why I'm like, it's bougie, because it's an expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah, no, buy a $200 spin bike and buy the shoes and save
That's the life hack.
exactly.
Yeah.
Fitness life hack of the podcast.
Yeah. So, Jairek, the last question we like to finish off with this podcast, and by the way, all of your answers have been absolutely surreal. It's been so grounding for us as parents to kind of reshape and re-engineer our lives and really look at our thoughts that we're thinking about, the stories that we tell us, the beliefs and the habits that we have in an everyday life, and how we can obviously reshape our life to create the best relationships with not only our spouse but also our children as well. So really, really appreciative of that. But our last question is more about you, right? So what is one question no one has ever asked you around either being a dad, generating wealth, running a business, balancing time, that you secretly wish someone has asked you?
I don't know. I get asked a lot of questions. Like, I'm blessed that people are curious, so they just ask just about everything. I'm also wildly transparent about shit, so I don't really have like I can't talk about that filter. It kind of just blurts out of my mouth, if you haven't noticed. I don't think I have one I've always wanted to be asked. People hit me with all kinds of random shit, and I always just kind of tell them what I know about it.
Okay, I might just ask one random question then, because I think everyone's belief structure of being a dad or being a parent is built on obviously their past experiences and what they feel they should live up to. So, how do you feel you're holding up to your standard of being an amazing dad?
Sure. So I think, like you're saying, either people had the childhood they dreamed of and want to replicate or to do better, or they felt like something was missing, so they're trying to fill in for that. The thing that was missing for me is my dad is wildly known all around the world, and he wasn't when I was born. He was 24, 25 years old. Like, he was just getting started, just getting traction. And it required him back then, pre-internet, without any of the connectivity or ways to send a message around the world like that. He had to physically get in a car and go from city to city to city to city and on planes all around the world to reach the amount of people he's reached. And that required about 340 days a year of travel, which means he was physically home about 10 days out of the year. He texted me during COVID after 17 days of being at home straight and said, "This is the most I've ever been home since I was 17 years old."
Wow.
Just let that settle. And so when I grew up, he was not rich and famous and powerful like he is today. He was just trying to get off the ground. He was wildly passionate and dedicated and made great results in people's lives, but he didn't really go. So my childhood was him growing. And so if you think about it, my childhood was him going through his knight and prince stages of life. My son is coming into this world when I'm a middle prince. My son is getting a totally different childhood based on my stage of life than what I received based on his stage of life. And so I could look back at that and be like, he wasn't there, blah, blah, blah. But I go, no. He was doing exactly what he was supposed to at that stage of life. I was just brought into his life at a very early stage. My son came into my life at a later stage, therefore he gets a totally different experience. My sister, who just showed up, she's entering his life when he's in his 62. He's in a totally different stage of life now. And so she's going to have a radically different childhood based on the stage of life he's in, and what kind of time, attention, focus, and resources he can bring to the table now versus what existed when he was 24. And so when I look at that, it's important to say, what stage of the journey am I in, and what level of responsibility can I take, and what are the gifts I can give at this stage? The gift I get is, I'm 38 and my dad's only 62. At this stage of life, we can have a friendship that's going to last a long time. The wound she's going to have is, she's 2 or 1. How old is she? 1, 2, 1.5. She's right in that 1.5 year range, but her dad's 62. Like, there's going to be a wound at some point, when he hits 90 and she's, what is that? 60, 70, 80, 90. So she'll be 30 and he'll be 90. And so I'm 38 and he's 60. I get those 30 years with him now. at some stage, unless he lives forever somehow, he's always in new shit, so I don't know if he'll live forever. But at some stage, she gets an early in-depth experience with him, but doesn't get the 30s, 40s, and 50s with him. And so I get a friendship at 30s, 40s, and 50s with him, and she'll get a childhood that was different than mine. And so there's beauty in every combination of these. I think the gift is identifying what stage are you in and what gifts can you provide in this stage. And the gifts you can provide in this stage are totally different than the gifts you can provide in another stage. You could say it a different way. The resources you can provide, time, thought, energy, money, space, presence, the resources you can provide at each stage are very different. And just like that bucket list, you have to say, how do I maximize the gifts at this stage that I can provide to my spouse and family?
That's so amazing. Jairek,
super profound.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Very welcome.
Brendo, you want to run it off?
Jairek Robbins, thank you so much for being on. Obviously, we've spoke about your friend's book. I'm going to put that in the show notes. Where should people best connect with you?
Yeah, find me on Instagram. That's where I'm most often. That's where I'm posting all the time and putting stuff up. So that's kind of the best place to find me. And then go to my website. I need to update it, but it has all kinds of cool shit on there.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. I will point out, as it's just started bucketing down rain, I've got my baby who's crying in the background, so I'm going to be a good husband because it's 1 a.m. in the morning and my wife is going to lose it. So, Jairek Robbins, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's it from us on this episode on The Dad Bub Show. If you want to find out a little bit more about us, head on over to www.dadbub.com. Until next time, see you next week.